is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. The hardworking farmer must be first to partake of the crops. 7.
Consider what I say, and the Lord give thee understanding in all things. Remember that Jesus Christ of the seed of David was raised from the dead according to my gospel.
For which I suffered trouble as an evildoer, even to the point of change, that the word of God is not changed. Therefore, I endure all things for the sake of the elect, that they also may obtain the salvation which is Christ Jesus with eternal glory.
It is a faithful saying, for if we be dead with him, we shall also live with him. If we suffer, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us.
13. If we are faithless, he remains faithful. He cannot deny himself. Remind them of these things, charging them before the Lord not to strive about words to no profit, to the ruin of the hearer. 15.
Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that need not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
16. But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness.
And their talk will spread like gangrene. Among them are Hymenaeus and Philetus. 18.
Who concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already, and overthrow the faith of some.
19. Nevertheless, the foundation of God stands pure, having this seal, the Lord knoweth goodness, that him, and that he reign on that made the name, and fight departed from the earth.
But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor.
Wow. This is where we're at, guys. 20. It says, but in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and clay for honor, and some of dishonor. Remove the ideal of a vessel, and we'll talk about the vessel, because I got it up there. But he speaks of right now the great house. And that great house is what? The church. So he's talking about the church, and I've got the large house will therefore represent the entire church of God. The body of Christ composed of all true believers. The vessels in which represents individual believers, the honorable gold and silver vessels, and the dishonorable vessels of wood and earthenware. What in the world is Paul talking about? Paul is dealing with some issues now. And that issue that Paul is dealing with is that we need to understand he is focused in on the church. And he's going to let you know you got all kinds of folks in the church. And what he wants us to understand is when he speaks of this, he speaks of not only leaders, but he also speaks of members, the body. He also speaks of them. So he's speaking of two. He ain't just speaking of just the leaders, but he's speaking of two. But I said it's amazing what he uses. He uses silver, gold, and wood. And so what I want to do was bring down an ideas to find out what's going on with the vessel. And so here's what he meant by the vessel. It was using the wide variety of domestic implements, utensils and furnishings, including furniture and tools. But because of the material mentioned here though, you see that, guys? Because of the material mentioned here, of which these items were made, it seems likely that Paul had in mind serving vessels. You gotta see that. Paul had in mind serving vessels. He talks about the church. And then when you talk about what? How the church would what? Serve. So if we talk about that, it's got to be focused in on that. So now, if that's the case, we're gonna stay for a minute. Then here's where we go. First of all, let me get back into the text. He says, but in a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, right? That's what he says, right? Was that considered a precious, what do you call it? Metal? Was that considered a precious metal?
Yes.
Okay. And then he mentions what? Wood and clay, right? And that he doesn't consider that such a precious commodity, right? But yet at the same time, did you know that's what the church is, what he's talking about, is made up of? You got those that are willing to do for God, those that will take the extra step to do for God. You've got those that have completely says, you know, it ain't about me, it's about helping others. That's your what? It's your gold and your silver. That's those. Then you've got your wood and your clay. Now understand this, they are in the church. So you've got those that say, hey, I show up when I feel like it. I come and, you know, if I showed up Sunday morning, I, in their minds, have served God. So that's enough. I've served God. And so I don't need to come back anymore. I don't need to make it to Bible studies either because I've served God in their minds. Well, he calls that wood and clay. But he also calls it, look at your text, he also says some was for what? Honor. And some for what?
Dishonor.
But you notice he didn't remove it out of the church. That's what I want you to see. But you notice that's not removed from the church. Last time I checked, who's going to separate the wheat from the tare? God. Last time I checked. So if this is the case, what he's saying here is, and this is interesting too, because he says in dishonor. It doesn't mean that you, what are you talking about? Doesn't mean everybody that's of wood that it's hell bound. But it does mean that God has a choice to make it which way he wants to make it, dishonor. So he's saying, by looking at this, he's saying we've got an issue here. I'm looking at the silver and I'm looking at the gold, that which respects my word, that which honors my son, I'm looking at them. But then there are those that are wood and clay and they're in the church. And they're just in the church. They just occupying the pews. They don't do anything when it comes to being obligated. And watch this, I see this, and I have to pick on brothers because I see it a lot in my brothers. When you're not participating in something, then you start to fade. And see, and I say that does not make any sense. But that's the ego side of the male that says, if I'm not doing something, then, you know, I can stay at home. When this is not true. I've said it, and I will continue to make that statement. It is the idea of, you came into the church, I swung the doors open for you. I gave you the chance to do what you thought, what your talent would allow you to do. Now, because you didn't use it, so now you fade in and out of the church. I call it the wind. When the wind blows, you're a part of it. But watch what he does. He said something in the next verse. He said what?
Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the ladder, he will be a vessel of honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work.
Look what he says. Therefore, if anyone what?
Anyone.
Purge himself.
So if you purge, cleanse, whatever, he says, and so here we go. He says, so what it takes to become a noble vessel, it takes what? Purging. Can we change that word, purging, and what would we call it? Cleansing. What else would we call it? That was an awesome word last week. What else? What'd you say? Transformation. What it takes to become a noble vessel, it takes to transforming. It takes when you transform. That's when it happens. A person has to cleanse himself. How's he going to cleanse himself? I put it up there. That's how he's going to cleanse himself. Our biggest problem with God is our behavior. We got a behavior issue. Okay? Behavior issue, attitude, and we don't want to, and what we need to do is take care of that behavior issue. You know, it's not I do it because I feel like it, or I don't do it because I don't feel like it. I do it because what I know. I know who God is. I know what Christ has done for me. So that's why I do it. I think Ben Kermit said something earlier. Tired. So, but what are you doing? But I do it. Why? I do it because it ain't about me. I do it because, hey, it's also healthy for me. Hear me? That's why I do it. I come to know more about God. Man, Steve was talking earlier this morning, and I said, you know, see, I love someone wanting to go to heaven. Why? When you don't know nobody in heaven. You don't know nobody down here. You didn't even get to take time to know Christ. So why would you want to go in a place that you don't know anybody anyway? Jesus walked right past you. You don't even recognize him. But you hear what I'm saying? Think about it. But when that transformation takes place, when our attitudes, when our behavior changes, and I've said it over and over, analyze yourself. Take the time, look at yourself, and see where you stand. And if you're doing the same thing you did 5 years ago, something's wrong with that picture. There's no purging. There's nothing that's been cleansed. I got behavior that is dishonorable and unrighteous. Words that are, what? Corruptible and dirty. Now when you talk, how are you? How's your speech? That's where I'm at. How's your speech? Is your speech the same? Do you still hang around folks that throw out dirty jokes? Come on, guys, there's more to it than just the act of you cursing, but it's who you associate with. Do you associate yourself with bad company? That's why there's no behavior change. That's why your words are corruptible. That's why when you talk, you can't talk about Jesus because you know what, you got all this other stuff in you. They call it in the computer garbage in, garbage out, right? Is that what's in you? That's why you can't make the adjustments in life, because you got a lot of garbage in you and you don't know how to even get the garbage out. Well, that's behavior. That's association. And he wants you to get around you. And oh, by the way, and he's talking about the church. You got to be kidding me. No, you can have some folks in the church that you do not need to associate yourselves with. Isn't that a sad situation? The church. I told you I had a friend of a friend that says, hey, you know, one of your friends go to the church. I said, well, wow, man, why don't you, I'm so glad you started going. I said, so why don't you ask him to, you know, tell him where I'm at and come on through. She said he won't because he's got some young lady that he sees and he's trying to go get her. So what did you go to worship for? First of all, you didn't go to worship. You went skirt chasing. You went skirt hopping, is what we call it. And so what happens if you don't get her? You still searching to find somebody else? You missed the whole point of what worship is about. So, that's wood. Did you hear me? So, that's wood. That's just there because That is the new club. I love the club. I love the club because I've gotten older. And now I want to find a new club. And the new club where a whole lot of people would be at is the
Gym.
no, it's church. That's the new club. Because you know what? I hear you, Jim. The gym would be the ideal of me also looking for trash. See, that's the gym. I'm going into the gym, and what I'm fine. Well, I'm fine. I'm looking at how the person's dressed, and so I've got the lust that's running out there. So I left the nightclub because I missed it in the nightclub. So I go to the day club, the gym. But hold up. But the church. I go to the church to go find me someone. You hear what I'm saying? Everybody that calls themselves Christians are sometimes wood and clay.
Clay.
You got to understand that. So what are you saying? That's what you have to be careful with. The wood and the clay. And you can't discern it. You can discern it. You can associate with it. But you do need to recognize. How do I recognize that I'm dealing with wood and clay? They ain't got nothing good to say about nobody. They always got something wrong in the church. They always see something wrong in the church. You know, they need to work on this. They need to fix this. They don't have no structure in the church. That's wood. It's wood and clay. Run from it. You need to stay far from it because it's not going to build the church. It's going to tear it down. As a matter of fact, if you listen to them long enough, they're going to build their own church. Did you hear me? And that church that they're going to build is a church that's dishonorable. God does not accept it. I told you, what is the church? We are the church. What are you talking about? I'm talking about a body. What is the body? The body is a body of behavior. Transformation is what you call it. It's the idea of transformation. Can you transform? God takes us any way He can. God will accept us any way. Believe me, when we come into church, God takes prostitutes. God takes anything and everything that comes to the church, right? Yep. Everything. Think about it. Does He want it to stay that way once it gets into the church?
No.
Now watch this. Will it stay that way once it gets into the church?
It shouldn't.
What did you say?
It shouldn't.
Why? Because it should work its way to become silver or gold. It should be working its way to become honorable. I walked into the church dishonorable. I walked into church as wood or clay. I walked into the church as trash. Something not worthy for anyone. But as I stayed, as I got to know God more and more, I became that vessel that God can say is now silver or gold. And we can't say, somebody can say, well, gold is much more valuable than silver. No, at one time, sometimes silver rises. Gold goes down. So He's got it pretty much two important pieces of metal that means so much. And the question is, where do you stand? Are you silver and gold? Or are you wood and clay? That's where He's at. And it's based upon dedication. An athlete that wants to be a great athlete has to do what? He has to make a sacrifice. He has to transform. They have to see a difference. Watch this, not they have to see, they will see a difference. You know, I remember when the dude was just this, and now the guy this is incredible. Look how he's come along. What is he doing? He's applied himself. He's working hard to become that vessel. Remember I told you, he speaks of the house in 20, right? He speaks of the house, the church. Then he talks about what's in the church. See that? Then he talks about what's in the church. Then he turns around in 21 and says, what, Calvert? And he says, what in 21?
He says, therefore, if anyone cleanse himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified, and useful for the master,
Wow.
prepared for every good work.
Wow. So now you got, I told you, so now all that is we've come to the conclusion that we're talking about the idea of a person who's now made the transformation. He's done the purging like he's supposed to. So this stuff will leave him. Behavior that's dishonorable, words that are corruptible or dirty, talk that is unclean and contaminated. I've been around folks, all they do is talk about junk. And everybody in the church, I'm serious, and you fail to understand this. They're talking about everybody in the church. Why? Why is it today you're not the one that they talk about? Is it because they're with you today? Did you hear me? That's the reason why they're not talking about you, is because they're with you today. But if you weren't with them, then you'd be part of the conversation as well. Think about it. Someone that's always complaining. Think about it. Someone that's always complaining. Do you want to be around someone that's always complaining? Think about it. And it's shame on you if you always like being around somebody that's always got unwholesome talk. What that says is the reason why that's there is because they haven't grown. That's the reason why that's there. Now, here's a bigger reason, and they ain't trying to grow. That's the bigger one. So look at this now. So now I've got, I put this down. Teaching is a false and cancerous. Well, watch this. I told you he's talking about the church. He's talking about leaders, and he's talking about what? Members. The members. And so watch this. You got a leader that's also, he doesn't teach with his life or with her life. He teaches with his, run that by you again. He doesn't teach with his life. He teaches with his mouth. Or she teaches with her mouth. What do you mean? They say beautiful things. I heard Jesus say something to the Pharisees. What did he say concerning the Pharisees? Don't be like the Pharisees, but what he said? No, he says, but he says what? Well, we're to do what? For the Pharisees, do as the Pharisees, but don't be like the Pharisees. Remember when he said that? Jesus made that statement. Why did he say that? Because what they were doing was their lifestyle was not based upon the things that they spoke of. Did you hear me? They got you doing all kinds of things. They ain't doing nothing. Yes, Brother King.
You worship me well with your mouth, but your heart is a flop.
There's another one. Yep, there's another one. That's very good. Boy, you've got a lot of lip service, but you got a heart condition. Now, if you don't watch it, you're going to have a heart attack. Watch this. Here's what happens when a person purges himself. Calvert, you read that in 21. A person who purges himself from these will become a vessel unto honor. Somebody can read. Yep, sanctified.
That is set apart.
That is to do what?
Set apart.
So go back and look at your verse. Go back and look at your verse 21. Go back and look at the verse. Calvert, read 21. Let's watch it now.
It says, therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified.
He will be a vessel for honor, and he what?
Sanctified.
And so what sanctified means what?
Set apart.
So you got somebody that's set apart, right?
Unto Christ
Under
and
Christ and
service.
stop and the word.
And his servant.
Can't get around it. He won't do that. That person will do that. they will make they will become sanctified. God can use you when you are sanctified. A lot of folks in the water went in the water and should have took a bar of soap with them. Did you hear me? Because all you cleaned was the external. You did not clean the internal. You were never purged. And yet you are of the church. I don't know about you, but guys, that's dangerous to know that I'm wood in the church. To know that I'm clay in the church. To understand that I'm not silver or gold in the church. I'm just there. I basically occupy a pew. That's all I do is occupy a pew. I keep telling folks too. And then when something happens, it's amazing how we scream out and cry out and want God to be in our lives. And believe me, we will, it just don't go for a day. We will be holier than holy when we know that the doctor done said you got 2 weeks to live. Now you're holier than holy. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Now I just hope I'm right with God. Well, you didn't have to hope you was right with God. That's the problem. You're right. That's the problem. You know you're not right with God. That's why now you're trying to clean your act up. Because you know you're not right with God. And you know you're ready to leave this world. So now you want to talk, all you want to hear is Jesus. All you want is the preacher to come in. I want the preacher to come back to the hospital. I want him around all the time. Why? You didn't want him when things were okay. You didn't want to come by then. You didn't want him to come by then when you was partying. You didn't want him to come by then when you were living a life that wasn't right with Christ. You didn't want him to come by then. But now all of a sudden you in a bed. I guess you say, no, I can't get around. So now, let me hear something good. Why? Because fear has crept into your life. And wait a minute, I'm scared to death. I don't want to die because you understand that God said you can't come to heaven. You understood that now. That's clear as a bell now. That's running all through your head now. That you're right. I need to get myself right. So now what I need to do is set aside and stop living the life that I'm living and start living for Christ. Don't you understand? You're talking about God. Run that by your kid. Don't you understand? You're talking about God. God knows your heart. God knows. So he knew that you would come crawl into him, especially when he knew that you knew it was time. He knew that you would. The Bible says what? Proverbs 1 verse 26 is God laughs. That's your calamity. So watch this. So we need to be fit for the master's use. That is, Christ will be able to use him. We need to be fit for the master's use. Run that by you again. That's part of sanctification, by the way. Fit for the master's use. Can God use you? Be honest with yourself right now. Can God use you? Be honest. Can he use you today? Or do you become, are you still that wood? Yes, go.
Yeah, the thing is, you can't, and I don't know if it really sets in for people in general, but you can't live for Christ part-time. And it's like trying to hold on to the things in this world and then trying to have, it doesn't work.
Come on.
And, and it's a sacrifice nonetheless, but, the process of trying to make it happen, instantaneously, the world has more to offer because it's more instant gratification. I get it right now when I want it, and, when I go about handling my business for Christ, it's patience, I gotta, hold on, stuff. I gotta, wait a while, stay a while,
Why, right.
Yeah.
And I like the microwave.
But I have needs right now.
There we go.
And I don't think my needs are gonna be met if I've solely put my trust in him.
Then I guess we back to that thought that I just put up on that board. I guess we back to that same old thought again. Fit for the use, that is, Christ will be able to use it. Can he use you? I've got prepared to do every good work that is. Christ will be able to use him for any works.
That's the issue.
Any works. Can I use you for any work? Can I send you out to go bring somebody back that has stumbled? Can I send you back? That's sanctification. Can I use you? And if I can't use you, ask yourself why. And watch this. Don't get upset because he told you. He says, purge yourself. He told you, cleanse yourself. He told you, just go.
Now, I just, today there was a gentleman, and he was a younger guy, and he was observing this older gentleman who was a little slow.
Okay.
And so I just happened to be, front and center. And so he said, that guy is weird. And and I said, well, you need to be careful what you say.
Okay.
And no sooner than when I said that, the young man dropped his identification and didn't know it. And that gentleman that he talked about said, here. He looked at me and said, I'll be damned.
Okay.
Who's slow now?
Right.
I said, he's not too slow, is he?
Right. And that's
I
how
had sense enough to tell you, and he was clearly gone.
Well, there you go. I guess I can move on. I said I want to stay for a minute here because I said I think we don't understand what it means. Now let's deal with dishonor and dishonor. Because he says what? Remember he was talking about that up in 20, right? 20 says honor and some for dishonor, right? Therefore it refers to the way in which genuine believers are found useful to the Lord and fulfilling the work to which he has called them. In the sense all believers should be what?
Not always.
But I'm not always.
That's where we go. You hear it? So everybody that went into Christ, this is what we keep missing too. We say, well, that person's not in Christ. If that person went into Christ, was baptized just like you were baptized, that person did go into Christ. Then he wouldn't be talking about silver, gold, wood, clay. So that person did go into Christ, but where do you fit? Are you the gold? Are you that silver? Or are you that wood and clay? You went into Christ, so you are a Christian. But you're a Christian that God has seen, that God sees as a dishonor. You didn't develop, you never grew. You just went in the water as a baby, you was on fire, and you never reached a level of maturity. So you are still immature, you're still a 40-year-old baby in Christ. Yes.
That you said, God chooses, decides who is dishonorable, honorable, silver and gold.
Oh, you guys pick up as that.
Well, I'm sorry, I was happy you said God, because we tend to judge.
Oh yeah, well we know God judges. That's
No,
why
we.
Well, that's what I said. But and that's why he said we can't separate the wheat from the tare. Matthew the 13th chapter. So since we can't separate the wheat from the tare, that means God can. And watch this, and here. Wait. No, in heaven. No, and here. Huh? That's what Paul is talking about, and here. He calls some silver, he calls some gold, he calls some wood, he calls some clay. And he's talking about here. Well, we can't judge. You need to understand Matthew, the 7th chapter, a little bit more. And so we'll understand it. Then you need to go over to 1 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, for me, please. I want you to see something. Somebody give me Matthew, the 7th chapter. I want you to see something. We need to be careful with these statements that you've probably heard. Now, you know we can't judge anyone.
The reason I brought that up because it said, but are not always.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm not knocking that.
Right.
I'm not knocking that.
So
You got which one you got?
Verse 2,
It's a
1
gift.
Corinthians
1 Corinthians 6,
6:2.
Yeah, but give me first Matthew 7 and 1. Give me that one first.
Judge not that you
It says,
be not
judge not that you what?
be not judged.
Okay, so what is he saying then? He's saying you don't need to judge because you have a measuring stick, and that measuring stick, it is a earthen measuring stick. It does not know how to judge. So you need to be careful what you're judging. But watch this. 1 Corinthians 6:2 says what?
Do you not know that the saints will judge the world?
Huh? What? Wait a minute. I thought we said we couldn't judge. But he says, do you not know that the saints will judge the world? So as I said, it's getting the understanding of what is he talking about. Watch this. It's very simple. God is saying you can judge, but it better be not with your measuring stick, your earthenware stick. It better be with your spiritual measuring stick. You're saying you better learn how to discern. You better learn how to watch this. And you will do that as you reach a level of maturity in Christ. If that's the case, then stop and think about it. If that be the case, somebody's out doing wrong, but I can't judge. I can't judge. What do you mean you can't judge? How else are you going to gather somebody up? Galatians 6 verses 1 says what?
Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of meekness.
What are you doing? That's judging. That's exactly what you're doing. You're saying, hey, here's somebody that was wrong. What made you say they were wrong? You're judging. You are judging. See what I'm saying? But watch this. But what he wants you to do it with is from a what particular?
Spiritual.
A spiritual. It's got to be not the tangible measuring stick, but it's got to be the spiritual measuring stick that you're going to measure somebody with. Because that's all God uses to measure us with. A spiritual measuring stick. So it's got to be a spiritual measuring stick when we go out to measure people. Well, what are you talking about? Paul, why would you make that statement? Gold, silver, wood, clay. Why would you make that statement? Because there's a measuring stick. It's a spiritual measuring stick. You know, I keep trying to tell that brother to come, but he won't come. That's a spiritual measuring stick. What are you going to do? I need to encourage him. Why you need to encourage him? I need to encourage him to come. Why he needs to come? Because you ain't got no business judging me no way. Huh? How else can I save your soul unless I judge? How else can I do it? That's the only way I can do save your soul. I have to realize what, according to what God's word has said, that becomes a measuring stick. I know we struggle with that, but that's why I said I'm so tired of hearing that. Matthew 7 chapter verses 1. We can't do. Yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. You better snatch somebody out of that fire, out of that brimstone. You better snatch them, and the only way you're going to snatch them is you do judge.
It's probably done all the time, but not to the degree where you understand it.
There you go.
Spiritually.
There you go.
Gentleness is involved in that.
You
Meekness.
Oh, we're going to go on. That's why I said, look at your text. Get back into your text. Watch it. He mentions more than sanctification. He says something else. Keep going. 21. I'll let you see it, but I'm going to pass this. I got a vessel for honor cannot remain honorable and usable if it is continuously what?
Contaminated.
Did you see that? I want you to see that one. Because he's talking about a vessel. I told you we're all vessels. But the question is, what are you a vessel of honor, or are you a vessel of contamination? What are you? I told you, can God use you? Because he told you you were sanctified, so can God use you? That's very important. So can you use me? It cannot remain pure apart from what? Pure fellowship. I told you is what? Behavior. I told you is what? Association. You don't get around, you don't deal with that with folks that don't have the same direction you have. They will pull you down. We talk about that today, Steve. They will pull you down. Got somebody coming to the Bible study all the time, all of a sudden you don't come no more. Who you associating with that's doing this? Someone is pulling you down. And you ain't got sense enough to understand. Satan will lure you. He will lure you. And what does he use? He uses his red horns and his little pitchfork to go get you with it.
No, the lust of the eye.
He uses what? He uses that same person that you love so dear and pulls you away. And pulls you right out of the kingdom. That's who he uses. Satan is no fool. He's been in the business for a long time. He knows how to operate. He knows you ain't going to run with this ugly person. He knows you're going to run with your buddy or your friend. And so you're going to have to be, what you should be is strong enough to say, no. It's time for us to make it to Bible study. No. It's time for us to make it to worship. You know what? We can talk, girl, right after we get through with this, but we got to go. Now hurry up and get dressed because we got to go. You hear what I'm saying? So association plays a role. Pull you down. Pull you right into hell. And here's what we fail to understand. We don't know when God's going to call us. I'm sitting around here talking about I'm going to do better. And then wait a minute, now I got a heart attack and then left this world. But I keep talking about I'm going to do better. And now I got to face God. Well, God, you know I was going to do better. He said, did you also know that I had a time too? That said you weren't. You already seen this. I've got a Christian sanctified, set apart in two ways. Negatively, he is set apart from what? Sin. Positively, he is what? For. See the key word? For. The key word is for, okay? It's for God. Got some good, got some bad in it. But you got to get rid of it. Negatively, it's set apart from sin. That's a good thing. Believe me, both good. But the idea of it is, first of all, you have to recognize that you are in sin. If a man don't believe he's in sin, he'll continue to keep doing what he's doing. I wonder how that would work. Let's see. Oh my God, you'd have to tell him. That means you do place judgment again. Could you ever? That means that there is judgment. Sent out again. Man, you're not living right. How do I know I'm not living right? Well, someone will say, what is it, Hebrews the 8th chapter, because God put it in your heart. Well, you know what? It is also my responsibility to bring it to your attention that you're not living right. Why? Because you claim you are a Christian. You claim you love God. And if you do, then it's not going to... And then if you do, it's not going to create a problem with me telling you, oh, it'll hurt your heart. Don't get me wrong. It'll hurt your heart because you don't want to hear it. But you do know it's truth. And because it is the truth, now I got to deal with this because I've just been hit with some truth. And so now I got to deal with this. We're going to get out of this in a little bit, guys. We're going to get out of it in a little bit. I told you I couldn't go no farther 2021 because it's just full of stuff. Full of it. Oh, somebody else right.
Too often we carry the person and not the truth.
You got it? Think about it. I told you, I'm just full of it. Christians not only are sanctified by having a right relationship with God or to God, but also are being sanctified as they grow. See that? Grow in fulfilling God's purpose of righteous living. You don't even know how to live. That's why it's important that you get around the right people. That's why it's important. Let me say this, something that blows my mind that I know that I was a part of this. I couldn't, you know what, the quicker I got around the preacher, the happier I was. I want to find out what's going on. I want to hear what he got to say. I want to find out why he lives like he lives. I want to find out where he gains his strength. Why don't you do like everybody else? Why, you saw that girl walk across the street, why didn't you go out there? If you weren't around, I would've. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? These are the things that I'm talking about. What makes you? What makes you tick? I know you're a human being just like the next person, but what makes you tick? What makes you not do this? Because when you have the right relationship with God, I told those that were here Tuesday, see, I know Jesus walking right beside you all the time. And you know, I remember, because remember yesterday I ended with this. How often do you pray? Don't give me a morning, lunchtime, and evening. How often do you pray? You should be praying all the time, and not for just yourself. But you should be praying all the time. Why? Because you understand, the more you pray, the less Satan has of an opportune time to come into your life.
Yep.
The more you pray. Satan don't want to hear that. Oh Lord, there ain't go again talking about Jesus, talking about helping somebody. Satan doesn't want to hear that. What will it also do? It will also help you to grow. When you pray often, what will it do? It will help you to grow. I can't say it enough. When you pray often, it'll help you to grow. Because when you start to pray, then you start to realize, oops, look at the wrong that I've done. All that stuff starts to surface, and you find out how selfish you are as an individual. That's wrong. Well, go back, brother, 21. Read 21, because there's another one of those words. 21, 2 Timothy 2:21. There's another
Therefore,
word.
if anyone cleanses himself.
So if he cleanses himself, well, look at it, guys, which means to clean out thoroughly. You leave a little something. What I used to always call it. You bury the old man what? Face up instead of face down. He's going to surface. You got to get him all the way out the picture. So when sin comes in your life, you recognize sin. You see it. But if you holding something, Calvert, you said you can't be a part-time Christian. That's what that is. You want to be a part-time Christian, you can't be it. You got to get it all out. You got to let it all, every ounce of it go. Did you hear me? Every ounce of it go. And move on. You can't look back. You can't turn back and talk about it. You just got to keep moving. So, that's what I wanted you to see. Finally got it. Sin is what?
Contagious.
No. Don't read no more. Stop. Sin is what?
Contagious.
What is contagious?
Spread.
Because what? It spreads. It just keeps spreading. Sin is contagious. It just keeps spreading. Watch this. Until you cut it out, it's just going to keep doing what it does. Sin it'll start with a speck. It starts with a dot. And then what does it do? It's I develop cancer. Once it gets air to it, it's on. It's only cooking now. It's rolling now. Now it's going to do its thing. Sin is contagious. With openly sinful and shameful people is morally and spiritually dangerous. Did you hear me? Sin. You can't see it, that's why you keep living it. That's why you keep doing it, because you can't see it. You know it's not right, but you do it anyway because you don't see any results behind it now. Right, Calvert? You don't see it now, the sin. What did you say about that Carter versus the Christian? So you don't see it, so you keep doing what you're doing, because guess what? Hey, everybody talking about God's going to give me, He ain't got me yet. I'm all right, I ain't keep doing what I'm doing. Everything's okay. But sin has got to do something. And sin grows, it's going to eventually produce what? Death. Don't make that what cancer do? Just keep going till it finally hits where it needs to hit and finally takes you out. We're going to a funeral behind that, what, Monday, right, Lenny?
Yeah.
Caused cancer. Cancer did its thing. And so this is what sin will do. Sin is contagious. I also want to say infectious. But it'll take you out, sin. And Satan don't even care. Did you hear me? He says that's another one that's gone. Write that one off. I'm going to have a whole lot of folks in hell because that's where I'm going anyway. So I'm going to have a whole lot of folks in hell with me. That's the way Satan views it. If I got to go, remember that old joke I told you all? Police came by and talked to one guy and he was walking past the bush. He said, man, you need to come on out because weeds called. Because weeds called. You hear me? But you hear what I'm saying? Sin will do that. It does its thing. It tears you apart. I got this, and I can't even remember why I put this. But I got this. He who walks with wise men will be wise. But when you see the rest? But did you see the rest? But the companion of a fool. Did you hear me? I told you it's association. Whatever it is that you're in, you need to get out of. It'll kill you. It's cancerous. It's time to roll now. That's there, but it's time to roll. I've got Masters translate depote, from which we get what? Yeah, despot. Christians are not what?
Simply rightly related to God. They wholly belong to God.
Well, what?
Wholly.
They what?
Wholly.
That's every ounce of you belong to God. Ain't no part-time Christian. All of you belong to God, not some of you. That's why he calls you master. That's why he says master in this text. That's why he goes with master in this text. Now let's go ahead and get back into the text. Let's travel. The Bible says this. Get on back, let's travel. He says, flee from what?
Flee from also youthful lust,
Uh-huh.
but pursue righteousness.
He said, flee from what?
Youthful lust.
Now we know he's talking to Timothy, but look what he says. Timothy is to do what? He's to flee, right? He's to run from what?
Youthful lust.
Guys, isn't that interesting? He's to run from youthful lust. Let me get you to this is where, wait a minute, Satan has what to play with? Watch this. And so, what does he do? He introduces you to the lust that he wants you to be a part of. Right? That's what he does. By visual, you looked, you saw what you wanted, and then what did you do? Then your youthful lust, let me state this. It's the ideal. He says, flee from youthful lust. And you thought because you got old, it was gone. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. You thought because you got old, it's gone. It ain't gone. Satan will always work. And they got all kinds of stuff nowadays. Blue pills, green pills, you name it. They got it now. They got it all to try to bring about your youthful lust. You hear me?
And they're asking for prescriptions.
What you say? And
They're busy, got me busy by prescriptions.
okay, let's see what you're saying. Why? Because what is it? You refuse to flee from it, and he's trying to tell you to stay away from it. You don't need to have no part in it. I've got this down. Y'all know 1 Corinthians 6:19-20. You have been bought with a price. Y'all know that one, right? You've been bought with a price. When you went in that water, your body no longer belongs to you. Watch this. He uses a great example in 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter of Corinthians. He says, your body is no longer your body, it is hers. Her body is no longer her body, but is his. Then he turns around and shows you, and it all relates or goes back to who? God. See that? And so what are you saying? You don't even own it no more. So why in the world are you trying to become, why are you trying to become youthful again? Why are you trying to resurrect? Is that where our problem lies? You hung up on youthful lust? Is that where our problem lies? And Satan uses it. And he won't let go. Because that's all he's got to work with. Don't you understand? If that's all you got to work with, you got to use it, B. If that's all you got to work with. And Satan says, by the way, he's been working wonders for years. He's been sending a whole lot of folks to hell, chasing the skirt or chasing some pants. When you should be chasing Christ. So he says you need to flee from this youthful lust, right? Leave that junk alone. He says, now watch this.
But pursue righteousness.
He says, but you got to pursue what?
Righteousness.
I ain't going to have enough time to keep moving the screen. But so watch this. But you got to pursue what?
Righteousness.
What is righteousness?
What is not convenient to do.
Oh, look at this. So, but what? I heard you say something, but what is righteousness? It's simple.
It's your being right with God.
That's all it is. That's what righteousness is. Being right with God. How do you know that you are right with God? He told you, 2 Timothy, 2 chapter, 15 verse. He told you. By studying Him. That's how you got to become righteous with God. You can't be right with something and you don't know what right means. So he says, I want you to study so you'll find out what it means to be right. And so what do? I said, what I want you to do was somebody says, he wants you to do what? Righteousness. I heard him say it, right? So then watch this. He says righteousness. He says what?
Faith.
He says faith. What is faith? Well, what is faith? To believe. To believe what? That somebody can make you what? Right with Him, with God. See what I'm saying? That's what he's talking about. When you flee this youthful lust, and guess what? Then you get introduced to righteousness. Then you learn how to be right with God. What he's saying, the God that you believe, and he'll introduce you to something else called the next word, love. See it? Isn't that the next word?
Love.
The next word is love. That you don't tell me. I told you too many folks were here talking about, I'm in love. You don't even know what love is. Identify it. Is it love or is it lust? And a lot of times, I bet you of the world, 98% of it is you in lust. You ain't in love, you in lust. You got objects.
I see you got a word up there, command, but I remember you doing this something that said, following instructions.
Okay.
It's about following God's instructions, right?
Come on.
So, He commands us to do these things.
You better know it. What better person would there be to show you how to live than the one that created you? Think about it. If God created you, wouldn't wouldn't He be able to show you how to live?
That's what Jesus came for, right? Did He come for that reason as well?
Come on.
I know He came to die.
Come on.
But
Came to
before
what
He
else?
died, He taught how to live.
He came to educate.
Yeah.
Christ not only came to die, but He also came to educate. He came to get us to understand how to live.
What the Beatitudes was about?
You got it. How to work out righteousness. How to understand what it means to really love. God is love. And if we deal with love, He turns around and puts it into the marital world. But God is love. And so what are you talking about? His relationship with His bride. I want to know who His bride is. The church. And don't you think He wants His church in an adulterous affair? Think about it. He wants His church, period. Why isn't the church in Why would the church go into an adulterous affair? Because they don't believe in him. I don't care what you say. When you get to know God, oh, it's a different ballgame. It makes you change it, your whole attitude makes you change everything. When you realize that, wait a minute, I am in love with the supreme being. The one that one day I will have to meet. One day I'm going to have to talk to. I don't know about you all, but I want to see my Maker. You say, well, everybody's going to get to see their Maker. You're right, because he's made that clear as a bell. Everybody's going to see his Maker. But I want to see my Maker with joy. I don't want to see my Maker where I'm scared to death, because now he's here. And now I realize it's real. Oh my God, it is real, and God is real. But it's too late. But it's too late to turn it around. Go on, he says what?
Peace.
Then he says peace. Then he says peace, guys. We says peace is what?
Peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart.
So I got you, God. I got your love. Here's your love. There's your love. Love is agape. It is no because it is the word of choice. It is no because it is the word of choice. Did you know love gives you a choice? Did you know that? Okay. I told you when we get to know love, it's not of what? Can you hear me? It ain't how you feel. Okay. Oh, got these sentimental feelings. It's not about feelings, because today you feel good, tomorrow you don't. So it ain't about that either. It is the love of the mind and the will, not of emotions. See that? Not of emotions or affections. Did you hear me? None of that plays the role with love. Love is something Dwayne said to me a long time ago.
Well,
It's to know. It's to know. That's what love is, to know. To know who God is. Because once you get to know who God is, then you know what love is. Because God didn't create this world because he felt like, I think this is something I'm going to do. It wasn't based upon emotions. God didn't make this world because he says, here's what I'm going to do. You know, they made me mad, so now I'm going to take everybody out. He doesn't work like that. God is omnipotent. God is all-knowing. He knew what we were going to do. It's not based on emotions. It's based on true, pure love, unadulterated love. That's what it's based upon. And that's what he's talking about. He's still talking about, by the way, his house. That's what he's still talking about. That house is what he's talking about. That gold, that silver, that wood, and that clay. When you get to know him, guys, this is how you become a part of that gold or that silver. When you understand what those particular words are, what faith means, what love means, and then we're going to deal with peace. But you need to see it. And so, I might just do this so we can keep rolling. I might just go ahead and just run it and put it in a printer. And then that way you have it, and then you can have it. Let me get it. There's your peace. There's your peace. It is the word which we get serene, or serenity. In this context, it does not refer to the absence of warfare, but to the harmonious relationship between what? Oh, y'all remember. That's your peace. That's your peace.
that means generic, right?
Yeah, by all means it's generic. But that's your peace. We call it what? Shalom. So we call it peace. Shalom. And the peace that he's talking about is inner peace, not external peace. He's talking about a peace that you can only have with God. I don't know about you all, knowing that when I leave this world, I'm heaven bound. That's peace. Did you hear me? But everything else is falling around you, okay? But knowing that I've got a reward when this is all over with, knowing that I go to real peace is what it's all about. That eternal peace. And when you can keep your focus where you should keep it, then you'll see that peace. You'll understand what peace means. That's for everybody writing law, and otherwise I might have to just print it. Because I normally try to get y'all a copy anyway, I just didn't do it. The next time I have to print it.
Hey, before you get that peace, don't you need to know the Prince of Peace?
Oh, that's the only way you get it. That's why he says to call upon the Lord, right? Look at your Bible. The Bible says what?
With those who call.
With those who what?
Call upon the Lord.
When they call upon the Lord.
Pure heart.
When they call upon the Lord, placing saving faith in him. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek. For the same Lord is what? Lord of all. See that? Abounding in riches for all who do what? When you call upon him. When you call upon him. Okay, when you call upon him. Lord, have mercy. You gotta call upon him. Kids, you gotta call him. The kids can't be part-time. You gotta call upon him. You gotta be every bit of what you need to be. You hear that? So, he says what?
Not just when you're going through tribulation.
Come on, that's right. He says, watch this. He says, watch this, call upon the Lord out of a pure heart. He says, but avoid what? Foolish and ignorant disputes.
Knowing that they.
Wait a minute. But he said, but do what?
Avoid.
He said, but you need to stay away from folks that always talk about Jesus but don't want to live it. Stay away from those disputes. Stay away from that foolishness. Stay away from somebody. Remember he mentioned two guys. How many he said, remember? Philadelphus. Remember these guys talking about the resurrection? He said, stay away from that garbage. Stay away from anybody that's not teaching you Jesus. Stay away from that junk. Stay away from that chatter. These idiotic jokes. Stay away from the boob tube, the television that produces the lust in you. It motivates you and makes you want to think, wow, you're right, I need to have that kind of woman. You're right, I need to have that kind of man. I always say they in Hollywood, take the makeup off of them, you probably won't want them. Remove all the fake parts from them, you probably won't want them. Hello? Okay, that's Hollywood. Y'all used to hear me tease and joke about Nicki Minaj all the time. And then somebody told me everything on her is fake. I said, Lord, have mercy. Okay, just ruined my everything, okay? Okay. I used to stop playing music. but you hear what I'm saying? Think about it. He says we need to avoid and stay away from that foolishness. Guys, this is real. The gospel is real. God is real. What he's trying to get Timothy to understand is, boy, this is what you're going to walk into. You've got to teach this stuff. And you're a young man, Timothy. If you don't watch it, then women going to come after you, boy. That's what he's talking about. Then women going to come after you, Timothy. You got to flee from that youthful lust. You got to stay out of those arenas of garbage. My time is gone, guys. But think about it. We will finish this later on, but think about it. Are there any statements that need to be made? Any statements? Yes.
Yes, if, just asking the prayers for everyone, and where my friend Stephanie, who's come on Wednesday and Sunday, her